Yeah, and it carries over. And this message isn't just for young kids and parents of young kids. Like, think about if you're a college player now or an aspiring college player, the car ride home, it's the same concept. It just, you might be old enough to where mom and dad aren't in the car anymore.
Right.
Because we do it to ourselves typically worse than we get it from mom and dad.
Yeah.
And the stuff that we say inwardly, we would never say to a guy that we hate, to somebody we absolutely despise, to our rival across town or across the country. We would never speak that harshly to anybody else. But the way we speak to ourselves is absolutely brutal.
That's funny. I made a video on that probably 6 months ago because guys were asking me how do they stop beating themselves up after they make mistakes on the field. How do they stop kicking their own dicks in? And I said in that video, I said, when you fail, when the outcomes aren't there on the field, speak to yourself like you would if you were speaking to your buddy who's playing third and you're playing short. How would you react? You'd be like, hey, dude, relax. Just one play. Just fucking beg for another one. Build them up. Because that's what players do. Players do that now, even when they're not even thinking about it, because they hate seeing their buddies struggle in situations like that. And I said, you got to speak to yourself that same way. Now, I know, easier said than done. I was that guy that always was super hard on myself from a young age. I always wanted to demand more. And it was a blessing and a curse because I worked harder than I thought was ever possible. But then if those outcomes weren't there, I was laying into myself and I thought, I just got to work harder. When in reality, that self-talk became so destructive and ended up costing me big time. But the point is, everybody just kicks their own dicks in and just thinks it's normal. It's not.
No, it really isn't. And we've got to be mindful of it. The way that we're speaking to ourselves, we've got to be just as careful and stand sentry against it, just like we would if we were protecting a child that's getting into a car ride with mom or dad, and mom or dad are borderline abusive. Like, we wouldn't stand for that, most of us, at least if we were raised with any sort of backbone. Mm-hmm. Like, we would not want to stand by and let that happen to a child, right? Because we know that that's fucked up and wrong. But yet, we don't... We have no problem doing it with ourselves. In fact, we think we deserve it. Mm-hmm. And I'm telling you right now, being a parent of a young player, doesn't matter their age. It is super difficult.
Yeah.
Watching your kids struggle, it's the most helpless feeling ever. But some simple shifts in focus can change all that. And the first thing is realize that it's not about me. Like, I already had my time, man. My career, like, it was a blast, great job. See you later, it's gone. Like, this is your time now. So do I want to try to make up for all my mistakes and relive, sort of go back and conquer my frustrations through your career? Well, that's not fair, man. That's not fair to you. Mm-hmm. That wouldn't be fair to Bubba if I tried doing that.
Yeah.
Because the game is already super hyper competitive and hard. So some simple shifts in focus, yeah, you can get past all that. Yeah. You really can. It's hard. It's even hard now. Go through a period of watching, a couple of bad games. Like, dude, that's brutal.
It's hard.
It's a visceral, response that happens to me physiologically. Like, my brain chemistry changes from that. Mm-hmm. But holy hell, I mean, I owe it to him, because even if I'm down the line and he can't see me, and I'm doing a great job of filtering it and not letting any frustration show, he can still feel it.
Oh, yeah.
You guys can feel that shit. I don't know what it is, but you can feel that. So it's about just demanding a higher standard and refusing to be that guy. Yeah. That's the bottom line.
Having a good, healthy perspective and having the ability to be mindful of your state at all times, we've talked about that a lot. That's got to apply to that self-talk after a game, before a game. You have to be mindful, because if you shift your focus, like you said, shift your focus to being mindful of where your focus is at, where your physiology is at, where you let your state go. Just being mindful of it at all times is a fucking game changer, because the vast majority of guys, and I've mentioned this before, they're mindful of their state, then that game starts, they lose focus, it's the fucking sixth inning, and they're like, oh shoot, man, like that was me.
Oh.
I wasn't mindful of my state at all, but if you just, and that's a habit. Being mindful of things is a habit, and it starts when you wake up in the morning. And I've ingrained that. You've helped me ingrain that over the past, several years. And it is an absolute blessing, because I could be upstairs and state breaks bad, whatever it is, back hurts, whatever, any sort of health issue. And then I check myself, I'm like, you know what, man, I can't be walking around in this state, because it's not fair to myself, but it's sure as hell not fair to my mom, and it's not fair to my dad. So I just got to step out for a second, make a massive change in physiology, redirect my focus, and go from there. And if players can learn how to do that when it comes to that car ride home, driving themselves back to the dorms, you're bouncing back from any sort of negative outcome 1,000 times quicker.
Yeah, that truly, the ability to command your own state by using your physiology and using your focus, there's no greater tool to impact performance and to impact the quality of your life, regardless of whether or not you're still playing the game.
Yeah.
There's no greater tool. In fact, it's a God-given tool, I believe, and it is the difference maker. Because if we examine ourselves and take a good hard look, like we all have certain states that is like our flavor.
Yeah.
For some people, it's fear. For some people, it's like just bubbled over frustration. For some people, it's stress. I'm just so stressed out. I'm overloaded. We all have a flavor that we gravitate to. So going back to the principle that our careers are going to be dictated 80% by the strength of our psychology, 20% by mechanics. It's basically how we feel, right? The strength of our psychology is going to dictate how we feel. And we're talking about self-talk, which really comes down to, in order for us to have a conversation with ourselves and be critical, it's because of where we're allowing our focus to drift. Mm-hmm. Well, our focus typically in the game of baseball is going to drift to the same flavor that we do anytime anything's not going right. And it will carry over after your career's done. So if you're one of those guys who's going to get frustrated and start blaming, all right, so the quality of our career is going to be dictated to the strength of our psychology. Well, of course it is. Because if our focus is constantly drifting to what makes us frustrated, because that's our go-to flavor, how do we perform when we're frustrated? I know, I'm dog shit.
Yeah.
Terrible. If I'm frustrated and then blaming somebody, like, not only am I dog shit, but the people around me hate my guts.
Yeah.
I mean, they're my boys, but right now they hate my guts when I go there. You know what I'm saying?
Yep,
So
it's good.
Yeah, we all have that flavor. We all got to understand what it is, and then we got to refuse to let our self-talk go there. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah,
it's about demanding more, because the quality of our career is going to be dictated by the strength of our psychology. Well, that's what psychology is. It's the ability to have stuff going on that normally makes us frustrated. Well, now we're shifting our psychology and refusing to go there. Mm-hmm. That is how, they say if we want radically better outcomes, we've got to do something different. Well, the way we do things in the game of baseball is everything. Mm-hmm. And if we're doing it out of frustration, we're fucked. If we're doing it to try to look a certain way, we're fucked. Right?
Yeah. That concept right there of we all have a state that is kind of our flavor, the state that we revert back to most of the time, right? My state when I was struggling in college, freshman, sophomore, junior year, which I had moments where I didn't struggle and I figured it out. But it was primarily worrying about how I was perceived, worried about what I looked like. And that was 100% on me. But I realized that towards the end of my career, when I figured it out, those last 2 summers, those 2 years at Southeastern, I realized that when I became mindful of my state and when I would, get Cade looking, now NAIA umpires are just trash, but they're all not very good. Generally, there are some good ones, but I'm getting rung up on a pitch, 1.5 feet, 2 feet off the plate with guys in scoring position. And usually I would go behind the dugout. I wouldn't throw anything, but I'd be so mad that I would just let it linger, affect my state when I go and play third. But towards the end, having that perspective and being mindful of my state, when I would strike out, I'd walk back in that dugout, set my shit down, throw some nicotine in, and I'm just like, you know what, he sucks. Like, whatever, And then I would read, and that was just me redirecting my focus based on the experiences that I had gone through recently, and I realized that I could have gotten myself there so much sooner if I was just mindful of it, and I stepped out of myself and I stopped fucking worrying about me so much. I feel like that's another big factor. I was worried about me all the time, how I looked, whether or not those guys in the stands are here for me or for the other team's shortstop. You know what I mean? I was constantly just so self-absorbed, so worried about how I was doing, where I was going to go, whether or not I was doing good enough. Nobody can play the game well that way. You just can't. And that leads to more negative self-talk. You kick your dick in because you went 1 for 3 with 2 strikeouts, and you're just kicking your dick in because you can't step out of yourself even though your team just won by 4 runs and you're heading to, you just swept the series. And it's so easy to go there. It's so easy to let your focus drift and become so fucking self-absorbed to where you step back after a season's over and you're like, oh my gosh, man. Like,
Who was I?
yeah, I have no idea who that is.
Everything that you described, in my opinion, based on my experience of diving into this stuff for as long as I've done it, is they're all different forms of fear.
Mm-hmm.
The guy who gets punched out on a fastball that's literally on the white line of the other batter's box. I understand the frustration of that. Like, you put in all this work to condition yourself to have good direction and to spit on stuff out there because you can't drive a pitch in the other batter's box, right? Not even with 2 strikes. But typically, if you peel back the layers of that, it's fear. Fear that you're not enough, that you're not going to be enough, fear that you're going to lose your spot. You described being so caught up in what everybody else was thinking. That's fear that I'm not as good as what some people are telling me.
Yep.
Right? It's some form of fear. Okay. All right. So what do you do? Well, if you were to, all right, let's just say that there's a bunch of people behind a curtain and they're fearful. And I was going to give you $10,000 to describe what that group of people back there looks like that's afraid. You know exactly what they look like, right? How they're carrying themselves.
Their physiology.
Their posture, their shoulders, their head position. Are they breathing deep? Are they breathing shallow? We all know exactly what fear looks like.
Yeah.
You can describe it. Well, typically people who are afraid, that's their flavor. That's their state, because it's something that gets into our bodies, but it's a product of our focus. We get punched out, all of a sudden that fear kicks in, that fear that I'm not enough, fear I'm going to lose my position, and my focus drifts back to that flavor.
Yeah.
But a radical shift in physiology and a subtle shift in focus, you can get out of fear like that in a hot second, in a fraction of a second.
Mm-hmm.
It's the greatest tool we have at our disposal.
And so many guys don't understand that concept. And unfortunately, the majority of coaches don't. They see it in action. They kind of know what that looks like, but they don't know how to articulate it. They don't know how to implement it, and they just can't put their finger on it. And I don't blame them. I mean, all this information's out there. It's just whether or not you put in the work to actually find it and be able to build those habits and ingrain those filters to where you can use them and they're readily available no matter what's going on. But I just feel like if players knew that they can redirect their focus and control how they feel by making a massive change in their physiology the way they carry themselves, it would just be a game changer. Think about how much different a freaking team would look with a bunch of guys who are mindful of their state and know that they are in control of how they feel by making a massive shift in physiology. You wouldn't see guys kicking their own dicks in after they make an error. You wouldn't see guys on the mound throwing their hands up when they just walked the freaking second guy, or a guy made an error in the outfield and the guy on the mound's throwing his hands up. You know, it's so important, but just guys just don't know it.
No, and that's why one player who has figured this out and has a better set of filters can change the culture and the trajectory of an entire program.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we don't know why, but there's something about that guy. Well, what is it about that guy? Well, he's worked hard and conditioned himself to have a better set of filters. Now, maybe he was lucky and his parents instilled those in him.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. It doesn't matter. But the fact is, those are learned traits. It's a set of filters that refuses to let external factors, outcomes, shitty umpires, bad calls, bad conditions, terrible field, bad hops, refuses to let external factors dictate how he feels.
Mm-hmm.
And if he's strong enough in those convictions, then that stuff starts to spread.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, it spreads to the people that matter, and then they adopt them. They're using the same filters. They're not getting pulled into the bullshit, the fear, the worry. Because of a better set of filters, it spreads like wildfire, and now all of a sudden, you've got something special.
Yep. That's good. And coaches can even do that too.
They can, but it's more effective if it comes from a player.
Right. I'm just saying, when I was at Southeastern, one thing Dinkle coached third. For people that don't know, Coach Dinkle, Adrian Dinkle, the head coach at Southeastern University, NAIA, #1 ranked program in the country for a long time. They were pretty good, but then he came around and now just incredible, you know?
They get it. That whole staff gets it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They all do. Really, genuinely, they all
Yeah.
get it. Guys would get punched out. You know, we're down now. For context, we abused people left and right. Didn't matter who it was. We were abusing them, and it was expected by everybody in town, everybody in our conference, that we were going to abuse people. And there were a handful of games early on where we were down 4 or 5 runs in the 6th inning because, you know, short porch. Sometimes bombs are given up in Florida, and it happens. Guys are striking out. Guys are trying to do too much. Look at Dinkled on the line. Nothing. Fine. Shoulders back, shooting the shit with the third baseman for the other team. He just didn't.
He's still expecting to win.
Yeah, he didn't care.
Yeah.
He cared, obviously, but he knew that our guys were going to figure it out because he had trust that our guys were going to come through in that moment. And then our guys looked to him because, granted, Southeastern was full of transfers. Guys that transferred for a million different reasons, but a lot of them was because of the coaching staff and it not being the right fit. And they just had their buttholes puckered anytime they failed at Southeastern to start. They look down that line after they strike out with bases loaded, and he's not making a face. He's not changed. He's not turning around and walking the other way. He's just Dinkle, man. And you're like, oh, okay, maybe it's not a big deal. He's got faith in me. He's got a bunch of belief in all of us. So why the hell are we worried? And it just, next thing you know, there's 4 home runs in the 7th inning, and we're up by 9 runs, and we're going home. It was unbelievable. And now I unfortunately had to sit and watch all that because of the surgeries. I didn't really get a chance to experience it that much, but just watching him, watching all the coaches, watching Doza hype up our guys on the mound like, dude, they have no shot. Or Coach Dahl, the man, would be like, hey, what the hell are you doing? Like, stop being a puss. You know, just go out there and freaking abuse people like you always do. It's that simple. I don't got to tell you anything. And our guys would just go and do it. It was unbelievable. It just spread like wildfire. Now, we had some me guys. Every team does. But those guys, if they were outward with it, they got shut down real fast by other players, by the coaches, and it was done.
Well, it's become the culture because they believe in it. And the great news, though, is number one, as a player, you don't need it. It's nice. It's fucking incredible if you've got a coaching staff like that.
Yeah.
But as a player, you don't need it. You can still shift your own focus. You can still use these tools and still feel belief even when everybody else is pressing that fear panic button. So you don't need it. I wish there were more guys like that.
It's nice to have.
God, I mean, because I don't get it. Because as a coach, you don't have to be Southeastern and be the number one program that everybody knows is going to dominate. You don't have to be that to still believe in your guys. Mm-hmm. Even if you don't believe, you can still act as if. Even if you're middle of the road, bottom end of the conference, you can still adopt that energy, adopt that philosophy, use those filters, and just not let panic get into you so that it then transfers into your guys. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you what, your team's going to get better real fast.
And they're just going to freaking enjoy it even more. You know?
And they'll have your back.
Exactly.
You want to talk about loyalty.
Yeah.
Guys respond to that.
Man, I wish more coaches were like that. I do.
I do too, because you know what? It's a lot more fun too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you're looking to build up and believe in guys and get them to believe in themselves, it's better than that other game that guys are playing.
Yeah.
Where they're trying to pound everybody down in hopes that one or two come up out of it stronger. That's assuming their intentions are good to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't think that works anymore. I wish it did. And as a player, you can't expect it, and you can't complain when you've got when you find yourself in that position where the coaches are that way.
Mm-hmm.
But think about how freaking tough you're going to be coming out the other side when you learn to discipline and use these tools, even when the coaching staff are the opposite of what we'd like them to be.
Yep.
And I'm telling you, it's that process of forging, right?
Mm-hmm.
Melt it down, and when it reshapes, it's just harder, stronger, permanent. And that's what these shifts in psychology are about, because they're going to even matter more to you when you're done playing.
Oh, hell yeah. I've had to control my state way 1,000 times more now that I'm done playing than I ever did when I played. And maybe that's because I'm mindful of it and I've dedicated so much time into learning about this stuff. But if I wouldn't have figured it out, life would be a hell of a lot different for me now that my career is over and I was forced to be done. I don't even want to know what it would have looked like if I wouldn't have adopted these filters and these principles and stepped outside of myself for a little bit. You know, it's just these are tools that you can make readily available now when you're still playing, but then it's going to do you so well when you're done and you can apply it. That's why people pay hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, millions of dollars a year on this stuff, on these principles to apply to their business, to apply to their
billions.
Yeah, to apply to their families. You know, it's so important. But unfortunately, the majority of the stuff, mindset stuff in the sports community and the baseball community is so surface level. It's so...
It does serve as motivation, but being motivated by someone else, by an external factor, it lasts for this long?
Yeah.
What we're talking about here isn't positive thinking.
No.
It's not us motivating you. These are tools and strategies that become habit, that you're navigating through the bullshit and finding peak state in spite of the place burning down. Mm-hmm. This is why people not having this, because this isn't taught. It's not taught in school. Like, you have to seek this stuff out. And most people never find it. And that's why everybody out there is like, not everybody, but a huge percentage are living these lives of like quiet desperation, pretending that everything's great on social, but they're desperate. Mm-hmm. They're desperate because they have no control. You know, somebody's dictating how much money they make and what they're going to be and do and have. But no. No.
It's finding that balance, man. It's finding that balance between that, in a very simplified way, old school versus new school, right? Old school principles in the sense to where you were playing dick in the dirt baseball and you were trying to abuse guys on that field. But it's new school in the sense that you've built yourself up. Like, you have instilled belief in yourself, no matter, like you said, if the freaking house is burning down. That's what we're doing. That's what we're trying to do, is trying to get these guys to be like, you know what? Coach is a dickhead. You know, he tells me that I suck. I don't give a shit what he says. I'm going to go out there and be me no matter what, and I'm going to prove him wrong. Or I'm just not even going to give a shit about what he says. It's about finding that balance. And these filters that we are giving you, and we're going to go even way deeper on here very soon, is going to give you the tools, because that's the entire reason why I've done this for the last 9-10 months. Dude, it's almost been a year since I started posting, which is crazy to think about. But it's not, hey, I'm going to motivate you to go and try to shove it up someone's ass. It's, hey, man, you are in control of all of this. Like, you don't need me. Our entire goal is to give you these principles, and then you can go out there and fucking apply them, because you know that stuff is within you. It's built in you, and you can ingrain it even more. You know, I don't like the whole motivation. I don't have the motivation to freaking do this. That's when I lay in the guys on social. They're like, I just don't feel motivated. Well, then go fucking do something else. Go pick up a trombone.
Then you got no guts.
Yeah. It's infuriating. And I'm getting that a lot from younger guys. Like, hey, I just don't have the motivation. All right, well then go
pick up a flute.
Yeah. Because I don't want to work with you. You don't need motivation. You need fucking discipline.
This is why I say the majority of like older people are living lives of quiet desperation. I think those same percentages apply to college baseball players right now.
No doubt.
Most of them are going through the motions. They feel completely powerless. They don't have anybody around them now building them up and making them feel good about themselves. The outcomes aren't there. So they're living lives of quiet desperation, and they're waiting for something to change. The only way that shit is going to change, because, okay, so our outcomes need to get better. Okay, so change your actions. Well, I hit the way I hit. I throw the way I throw. You don't want to, start doing your actions differently in terms of what you're doing, but how you're doing them and the state in which you're doing them, that's everything.
Yep.
That's when you find that next level, because you can find fire without it coming from some dude's post on Instagram.
Yep.
We're talking about strategies to get to fire all the time, because it is possible. Mm-hmm. And you don't need motivation. You don't need that bullshit. You don't need positive thinking. You need tools and strategies to direct your own state, your own focus, and find fire.
Yeah.
Because it will become a habit.
No doubt.
If you pay the price.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. Just a quick little example. I wasn't planning on bringing this up, but when I was finishing my career at Southeastern and we were doing the, preseason inter squads, right? Guys are getting an inning or two on the mound. I knew that there was a part of me that knew that I wasn't 100% physically, like my spine was still very unstable. I knew it. But I also knew that that's just the way it was fucking gonna be for right now. And I found myself focus drifting a little bit when I was heading to the field. I'm like, you know what, man? You can't fucking worry about it. Like, you just got to go out there, control your physiology, because I knew in the back of my head that the moment that I let my physiology break bad, this wasn't tight anymore. Core wasn't tight. And that leads to even more instability. So all I focused on was getting through that day. Control your physiology every single moment, every single pitch, every single time you run out to your spot. Control your physiology, and just, if you do that, then it's in God's hands. If I get hurt again, I get hurt. Whatever, fuck it. That's literally what I thought. But I was hurting. I was hurting bad. I was hurting really bad. And I'm like, okay, I got to do something different. I didn't change my actions. I didn't change what I did on the field. I did the same thing I always did, but how I did it changed. And what I paid attention to, what I was mindful of, completely changed. And it paid off for me. I still ended up getting hurt, and being done. But I don't regret a single thing, because I changed the way, like how I did everything. And I was mindful of it. And I controlled what I could control. And that I was okay with whatever outcome came.